if you are running against an openly racist president who is being supported by very loud, openly racist members of his own party, what do you do about that?
I think you pointed out if and where it's true, although you've also got to be careful that you don't interpret words that lots of people would take rather innocuously as always racial dog whistles. It's right. It's weird to say that you have an openly racist president like Trump who explicitly attempted to do outreach to African Americans. I mean, that's not something that someone openly racist would do, right? Or am I splitting hairs here? I mean,
you're splitting hairs.
Well, tell me.
If he's not openly racist, then the word racism has no meaning.
Well, give me a few examples of just a few examples of openly racist statements that he's made.
Well, the Muslim ban. His. Well,
that's about religion, right, and terrorism.
It's also ethnic, but his continuous boosterism for increased police violence. When he was campaigning in 2016, he appeared with members of the Suffolk County, Long Island police force, and made the argument that was obviously racist. I mean, there's just no way to not talk about it as racist, that you should be smashing suspects' heads into the roof of cars as you put them in, like they used to do, right? And the point being is that, and he succeeded in getting police forces, like the head of the New York City Policemen's Benevolent Association, who appeared with him in a wildly incendiary rally that was really all about why cops should be able to use more violence on suspects.
Absolutely, I know. And I pointed that out very early in the very early rallies. I was like, what the hell is this? Obviously. Now, you're saying it's obviously racist. I would argue that obviously there are plenty of fascistic, let's put it that way, populists who talk about cracking down on disorder and law and disorder, breaking of the law and general. I mean, now if that is always racist,
insider trading is what he was talking about.
No, he's talking about street violence. Obviously, he's talking about how you handle people on the streets, or demonstrators, for example. In his that's how the language often came up when a demonstrator was there. He said, "Get them out of here. I'd like to see them on stretchers or knocked in the face." Most of whom were white. I couldn't be more on your side in terms of the hideousness of his endorsement of state violence. On the other hand, I don't see it as openly, obviously racist. And I now it may be just where I'm coming from, but I think a lot of people wouldn't, and a lot of African Americans and Latinos and minorities didn't hear it that way either. That's why more of them voted for him proportionally in 2020 than in 2016. So they didn't hear this, they didn't hear this as racist as such. They were told it was racist.
Right. So if I'm correct, the proportion of the African American vote that Biden got was 87%, down from 89% for Hillary Clinton. Yeah. So a calamitous drop.
But do you think all invocations of the importance of law and order are racist?
In the American context, you can't extract racism from those invocations, because those were traditionally and historically used as coded language for cracking down on Black crime and Black violence and against cities, right? If you remember that Trump was explicitly talking about, that cities were like jungles. They were Wild West, dangerous places that nobody would want to go to. He was talking about how I'm going to save your suburbs. That if Biden comes in, your suburbs read white.
Explicitly appealing to white women as well in that context.
They're coming for your white women. Yeah.
I can
So
see.
I think,
I can see that absolutely. I totally
yeah,
concede that. I concede, but I do think that it's possible lots of people hear these things. It's just less crackdown on criminals, and when you object to that, when people object to that, it definitely comes off the wrong way. That's why the belief, for example, of the New York Times staffers that cracking down on rioting in Manhattan, if all hell had broken loose to let the feds in, they actually evicted someone who actually allowed a piece to run, arguing that we should crack down on law and order. Even though most of the rioters, by the way, many of the rioters was very multiracial this summer. It wasn't just that was what was remarkable about it.
right. Well, I mean, look, I'm I mean, everyone likes to say they're a free speech absolutist. I'm always looking for a way to be pro free speech. And, James Bennett was my former editor of The Atlantic. Actually, so was Ross Douthat. James Bennett is one of the nicest, kindest, smartest people I ever had the pleasure to work with. And I think the whole thing was deeply unfortunate. But
But if enforcing law and order is inherently racist, which is what you sort of implying.
Law and order, out of context is not inherently racist. Law and order has been used historically by conservative politicians as a way to dog whistle to white voters that they're going to keep black people out of your neighborhood, right? And this is something that goes back to Reconstruction. It goes back to pre-voting rights era South. These things don't come out of nowhere, right? And I think one of the ways in which, as you said, that you're naive a little bit about race in America and having missed those first 20 years is the way in which all of that is like deeply internalized by anybody who grew up here, and the understanding of how the tragedy of racism is core to the American experience is something that we argue against. We make fun of wokeness. We make fun of silly left-wing people, but it's all to me a little bit of a smokescreen to what has to be, finally a real effort to contend with race and racism in America.